VR loading screens kinda suck. Loading screens in any capacity tend to suck. They're not designed to be enjoyed usually, they're just byproducts of the computational process that we endure because we want what's on the other side. You put up with this because at the end you know you'll get this. But VR is in a unique position that makes waiting around during loading screens even more annoying than ever. Think for a second, what do you normally do when faced with a long wait time? Maybe you reach for your phone or open another tab, maybe talk to someone in the room. Heck, you could even eat a full course meal in the time it takes to load up GTA Online. But the point is that you usually have some other form of engagement to alleviate the boredom caused by sitting in front of a static screen, right? But what do you do when waiting for a VR game to load? Well, the only thing you can do. You stand in the middle of your room, essentially blindfolded, alone with your deepest, darkest thoughts, with a warm toaster on your forehead. Oh, and it stops loading if you take it off, so yeah. VR loading screens really do suck. Now, not all loading screens are created equal. There are at least some that offer you a nice splash screen to look at, or at the very least a progress bar, or at the very least a spinny wheel. But even these don't solve the core issue facing loading screens in virtual reality. And it's not just an issue of engagement. I'm not just complaining that I'm bored during these loading screens, although of course I am, but rather the lack of creativity in these loading screens actually ruins a lot more about the VR experience. You see, part of what makes VR such a unique medium for experiencing, well, anything, is that it's involuntarily immersive. And I know immersive is a word that can be used to describe pretty much any form of really highly investing media, be it books, TV shows, board games even. But what I mean when I say involuntarily immersive is that unlike other forms of media, the immersion you feel in VR isn't necessarily a byproduct of amazing storytelling or immersive gameplay or top-of-the-line graphics.
Well, what the hell?
You see, The Witcher 3 is considered an immersive game because of its deep and consequential story, along with its solid gameplay and graphics. These are the meticulously crafted elements that add up to immerse the player into this game world. It's the graphics that keep your eyes glued to the screen, the gameplay that keeps you actively engaged, and the story that pushes you along your adventure. When all these elements are hitting just right, that's when you forget about the outside world, about real life, real problems. That is your escape. And that is immersion. And in traditional media, that feeling is earned by the creator. But VR has an advantage here. In virtual reality, immersion isn't the end result, it's the price of admission. You must give your full attention and bodily presence to a VR game just to experience it, just to play it. It's almost as if it's immersive by definition rather than by merit. When you put on the VR headset, you are basically committing your full field of view, your ears, and your hands to the task of playing the game. You are almost unable to be distracted while playing a VR game. There's no way to look away from the screen, no watching YouTube in the background, no scrolling through your phone during a cutscene, no eating a full course meal while your friends wait for you to ready up. And while that by no means guarantees a VR game will be immersive, I mean there are plenty of examples to prove otherwise, I do think it speaks to the core design philosophy that should be at the forefront of any VR experience. Because of the high attention commitment required to use a VR headset, every second spent in a VR experience should be valuable and contribute to it in some way, because it's painfully obvious when your time is being wasted. Which is why I won't waste your time with this. Thinking back to when I only had a Quest 2, some of my favorite accessories were these larger controller grips made by Kiwi Design. The extended handles that gave my fingers more room to spread out, the way you can easily loosen or tighten without looking, and the way the battery compartment is still easily accessible. So it was awesome to see that they finally got around to making these same style controller grips, but for the Quest 3 and Quest 3S. These are called the G4 Max Extended Controller Grips, and I honestly do recommend them. I will warn you though that if you play mostly shooter games, the extra handle length might get in the way of reloading if your hands get too close together, but if you do play any kind of melee game, the shape of this does feel way more like holding a sword hilt, which is awesome for me because I've recently been playing through Clone Drone in the Hyperdome, and it's been awesome to use these for that. Anyways, thank you to Kiwi Design for sponsoring this segment of the video. Remember to use discount code VIRTUALBRO and or use the affiliate links down in the description. Now, let's get back to loading screen. Unfortunately, for now, loading screens aren't going anywhere. In fact, thanks to multi-platform releases on standalone hardware, it seems like we're getting even more of them than ever. You could have the most immersive gameplay and graphics ever, but if there's a mandatory sensory deprivation tank every 20 minutes, I eventually will get fed up with it. These were two of the highest profile VR releases of 2024, and this is their loading screen. Now compare that to this solo indie developed VR game that's still in early access.
Oh, this is awesome! Max, we're in a car! This is so cool. Oh, I can drive. Oh, we can absolutely drive. This is the best way to load into a level that I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, this loading screen literally places you in the driver's seat of a steerable truck as you drive towards the map that it's loading. This is the most immersive loading screen you could ask for. Not only does it give you something to do and to look at, but it remains faithful to the continuity of what you're supposed to be doing in-game. Now let's look at how Blade and Sorcery approaches the same task of transporting the player to the map. So we click on where we want to go, and then there's this loading screen, and then we're here. It's kinda underwhelming. In the continuity of the game, you're actually rowing or sailing this boat to wherever you're supposed to be going, but in reality, you don't feel any of that. You may as well be teleporting there. Now, I understand the limited computing power of the standalone quest would probably make it hard for them to render a whole sailing on a boat scene while loading the main map in the background, but at the very least, I feel like they could have added sound effects to imply this action. Tell me which sounds better, this loading screen or this one. Hopefully you like the second one better, because that's the whole point, but that took me like 5 minutes to do, and it adds so much to the continuity of the experience. They play music during these load screens, so I'm sure they could replace that with contextual sound effects that align with what's happening in world. So if loading screens aren't going away anytime soon, the least developers can do is find a way to make them naturally fit into the experience. It could be doing something as simple as adding sound effects to imply action during loads, or it could be a little cutscene like the Resident Evil door. Heck, I'd love for VR games to adopt the old squeeze through a tight area to hide a loading trick. Batman Arkham Shadow does something similar, where there's this hidden loading screen during the door unlocking animation, or like in this indie Blade Runner inspired game called Meta City Patrol. When landing your flying car, fog temporarily covers your windshield to hide the loading screen. Another example is this trippy gardening game called Fuji, where you take a boat to each level, and I think this boat is hiding a loading screen. Same with these airlocks in Red Matter 2. The game pauses you in this tiny little hallway under the guise of decontamination or cycling the airlock, but really this is just loading the next section of the game. There's no shortage of solid examples, but they are definitely not the norm. I'm not saying I need to be entertained and stimulated at every microsecond. They could let you scroll through Instagram Reels during loading screens, but I still wouldn't be happy. I'm in VR to be fully immersed in a different world, and loading screens take me out. And sure, technology will eventually solve this problem. I think once we get SSDs into standalone headsets, the load times will be insanely quick, but in the meantime, all I ask is, can we at least try to make immersive loading screens? Thanks. And thanks for watching this video too. Let me know down in the comments if you think of any other examples of either great or terrible VR loading screens. Be sure to leave a like if you liked the video, leave a dislike if you disliked it, and subscribe for more high quality VR content. Huge shout out to my virtual bros on Patreon. They're the ones that helped me decide which video to make this month, and I'm so glad they chose this one, but sign up today to help decide next month's video. As always, I'm Virtual Bro.
What are you waiting for?
I don't know. Something amazing, I guess.
But what the hell, boy? Huh?
Hello? Hi.